This is Take 5 with Bentley, Nevada. In the studio again today is Tanya Woods. She's our global product compliance leader for Bentley, Nevada. And last time we talked a bit about the team and basically just really the thousands of approvals that you have to maintain. And this is definitely not once and done, is it? I mean, there's a lot of sustaining work to maintain these approvals.
Absolutely. The certificates expire fairly regularly depending on the country. Then, of course, as we update our product to keep up with the obsolescence of parts and stuff, that could drive us to have to renew certificates or get them updated.
Right. Well, also, I think, when you think about customers who may want to access some of these certificates and keeping all the current ones posted, it's a job in itself. Does Bentley, Nevada have a portal of sorts for customers to go get these things and download them?
We do. So anybody can go onto our tech support website, and right there on the front splash screen is the link to the certificate portal. They can get access and download anything they want.
Yeah, I actually I guess I'm special. I was given access to that portal and I've kind of surfed around in it. And it's really a rich mine of information like that. There's product manuals. There are even historical catalogs if you're looking for something that isn't on the website any longer. I mean, the life cycle of this stuff is 20 years by design in a lot of cases, but I've been in plants where you'll see something that's 40 years old and it's still ticking.
Absolutely. Those 7200 probes, man, they just keep going like the Energizer Bunny.
I do remember when there was talk in the business about obsoleting some of the 7200 and trying to migrate customers to the newer stuff. And the decision was ultimately made, no, we're going to keep supporting this. And it seems like migration always is better if you're a customer when you get to migrate as opposed to have to migrate. So, and I guess the 7200, they're still out there and people are still using them, and you're still shipping lots of yellow cables, not just blue cables.
Absolutely. Just shipped some last week. So
on this topic of approvals, last time we touched a little bit on maybe there was kind of a expectation at one time that the world was going to get smaller and simpler when it came to approvals, but that's not necessarily the case, is it?
No, we actually see the opposite happening, and it seems to be on a very high upward trend. So when you just think about the last 2-3 years, so many countries have come on board. We had Brexit happen. So now the United Kingdom has their own standards and certificates and markings and declaration of conformities and all that. The UAE has published their own, not just hazardous area certification scheme, but their own ROHS scheme too. So you just see it all over the place.
So for those who are not real familiar, maybe by way of a little tutorial, when we talk about hazardous areas, we're talking about instruments that won't ignite an explosive atmosphere. When you're talking about ROHS, explain what that certification is all about.
So ROHS is really focused on chemicals, restricted substances, things that people are concerned that maybe they can cause health issues or harm to the environment. So we see, I guess, one of the things that comes to mind is lead. People are concerned with lead or other chemicals that you find in plastics and stuff that you could digest it easily. And so those are the types of things that are restricted, and we don't want them in our supply chain.
Well, I know ROHS drove an enormous amount of rework across the world when you think about all the circuit boards that had lead-based solder and things and having to redesign for ROHS compliance. And I think there was a fair amount of that went on at Bentley, Nevada as well.
Absolutely. Bentley, Nevada spent, I can't probably tell you how many millions of dollars on this podcast, but we revamped all of our product lines. So even when you look at 3500 and it looks the same on the outside as it did back in the 90s when it was launched, if you were to pull the cover off, it looks completely different with all new technology and everything in
Oh
there.
yeah, I remember the original boards. There wasn't a lot of leftover real estate, and it's amazing how much more you can get on a physical board the same size these days without using very much. But yeah, the boards they've gotten simpler looking, but I think that's an example of how things that you don't really see or appreciate maybe as a customer, there's a lot of work that goes into being able to ship something that has the same fit, form, and function, but it might be very different on the inside.
Yeah, and reverse compatibility,
Yeah.
right? So if you bought a unit in the 90s, you can plug it in with today's unit, still have the same functionality and features, and be enhanced because, of course, we've done a lot of work on that, right?
Yeah. Well, probably a whole series of podcasts, Chris McMillan, proximity technology. But, one of the things that Bentley, without question, I think does better than anybody else on the globe is the ability to take a probe that might have been installed in 1990, connect it to a cable that was built in 2000, and then to a proximeter that was built this year, and they all run within that tolerance. It is not easy to have quality control at that level because this interchangeable aspect of the systems, people may not appreciate just how challenging that is, but I know Bentley Vata has perfected that, and it reflects on the reputation the business has.
Absolutely. That's definitely one of the things that sets us apart.
Once again, we managed to exceed our little 5 minutes, but there's more to talk about on this topic, Tanya. So I'm going to ask you to stay in the studio with us, and we're going to continue this conversation on the next episode. You've been listening to Take 5 with Bentley, Nevada, a Baker Hughes business.